Happy September 30th, 11:31 a.m. Central Time here. The Steel Guys is ready to get going on our weekly discussion. We are broadcasting this live to YouTube and our LinkedIn channels. So if you're seen on that, we'd love you to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you can. If you tell us what you'd like, think yes or no. So we are live. I've tested everything out. It's good, ready to go. So let's bring in Scott Glenn, the other Steel Guy. Hello, Scott.
Hello there. How you doing?
You're going to get some feedback there. I forgot to turn that off. So we had a little
it's on a little bit of feedback.
Here, so I think I just turned it off so you can.
Welcome to everybody who's joining in.
Be right
Look
to
forward
you.
to having a nice little conversation here.
Okay, we are.
Minor technical difficulty trying to zero some things out here.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Anyway,
keep talking. You can keep talking. I think they can hear you. So
September 30th. Hard to believe that tomorrow we're
coming in
fourth quarter. But we are, whether we want to believe it or not.
I'm going to have to
Can you hear me, Jim? You still there?
Soundboard here. So, somehow
when it reboots, it has a mind of its own, kind of goes back to where it was.
It's just not picking up my earbuds, so I can't hear anybody or anything. Let me. I'll move over to this here. Got my earbuds here that are trying to reset. No, put it up here in the.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yay!
There you go. Hip hip hooray.
Yeah, hip hip hooray. All right, it shows that we are 2 minutes into our stream, live and in color. Did you cover, we're monitoring the chats and the LinkedIn and the YouTube channels. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to jump on in there. We are not putting this out to Zoom, which I guess now that I'm thinking about that, that's one of those things. You can chat, but eventually we'd like to get this where we're in a meeting kind of thing where we can get everybody's video and everybody get to know everybody and make this kind of a place to communicate the local news and at the same time, make networking a possibility with other people that are involved, other busy professionals in the supply chain of metals. So,
right.
So with that, that's kind of the way we've kind of got this outlined here. We've got this. We're going to kind of cover the key risks, themes, and opportunities that we see from the last week, and then some recent developments that have happened in the news for the past week. And then there's a couple of questions we can go over. If we get down to that point and haven't talked about everything already, we can go over the questions. So I kind of go over the risks and headwinds that we're seeing out there right now. So there's been some supply disruption risk in critical metals, for example, copper from Grasberg, which we'll cover. These are things that we're going to kind of cover. These are the items that are kind of key that go along with the developments for the week. And this may ripple through the value chains relying on energy tech metals. Margin pressures for miners and metal processors, as many critical in quotation marks metals still trade weak relative long-term forecasts. So, and then policy unpredictability from tariff expansion to derivative product inclusions, which adds compliance and sourcing risk to the metals business. Overcapacity and export flooding, especially from China, threaten to dampen pricing globally. That seems to be something we've seen for the last 30 years, but When was that not in the top?
Yeah.
Sorry. Demand softness in core sectors such as the construction and manufacturing may limit upside in the near term. So some of the risks and headwinds and some of the opportunities and bright spots for the last week that I've seen in the news and opportunities is green steel transitions in countries like Malaysia and among investors provides avenues for premium differential steel products. I still don't know. That's another thing. We'll look at that and talk about it. Some will, I guess.
Right. I guess it's what the benefit is in terms of being green,
right,
and how well that correlates with your likings and dislikings, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess you're a consumer that's buying your product, and you can advertise that you're buying made with green steel, and they may be able to command a premium in their product, in some cases, if people are feeling sustainable and green and things like that, which is good for long-term cleanliness of the country. But, at what point do you survive versus look at again, a lot of that is survival today versus looking into the future. That's
right. And like you said, it's like made in the USA. I mean, I know historically for the past 30 years, I haven't seen a whole lot of people that are willing to pay a premium for products that are quote unquote made in the USA. However, there's a lot less of them that are out there, but I don't think people are willing to, if they walk into Walmart and they see a product that's on the shelf that says made in the USA versus made in China or some other country, they're not going to pay 25% more just because it was made in the USA if it's the same quality of the product. But anyway, that's
always the key, the same quality. And again,
same quality. That's an issue. That's a key factor for sure. Yeah.
Can be when you're looking at that. I guess that's the same thing. I mean, I even look at that generic product on a steel, grocery shelf. I'm looking at the Quaker oats versus the generic oats, and one's $3.50 a container, and the other one's $2.75 a container. I know which one I'm buying, but
right. Yeah, but there again, the quality. If you know the quality of product A and you buy product B because it's cheaper, and you find out, oh man, that just doesn't taste as good, I'm willing to pay that extra 75 cents or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
It's where the quality comes into play for sure.
Quality. Yes.
Quality. Yes.
Yes. Domestically protected markets. This is opportunities and bright spots. Domestically protected markets through tariffs and import constraints offers breathing space to rebuild margin or invest in modernization. That's a bright spot. And another one of the bright spots is strategic investment in large-scale integrated capacity in emerging markets. For example, India can shift longer-term trade balances. Something to watch out for in opportunities and bright spots. And the final one here is the government stepping in. For example, Canada and Algoma show that industrial policy will matter. The industrial strategy with metal sector dynamics. Okay, so some of the news for the last week. Moving into the news for the last week. Do you have any? So just kind of read the news here, just kind of see what's going on. This is kind of broken down into various segments. What we have is it goes from mining and raw materials all the way down through the end user marketplaces, so with the steel mills and service centers in between. So kind of the news is broken down in such a way there. So just covering the headlines here for the metal and raw materials. What is a massive mud rush? A massive mud rush? At Freeport's mud rush. That must be a term that's in the mining business. I have never heard mud rush before. Have you heard mud rush before?
I have not. Well, I don't think in the context of what we're talking about here, but
I don't know that I've ever heard in any context a mud rush. But a mudslide. Is that like a mudslide?
Mudslide, I guess. People refer to it as a mud rush, but
a mud rush, yeah.
It's mudslide, but yeah.
I've heard of gold rushes, but I never heard of mud rushes. Yeah. Anyway, a mud rush there.
Is that that's in the minerals sector, and I know one of the big things that there's some stuff going on in the copper market, which I don't know much about the copper market. I don't know.
Well, that's what the mud rush happened in Indonesia in a copper mine, and that copper mine accounts for about 4% of the global copper output. So which that shut down that market or that mill, I would assume, which drove copper to a 15-month high. So that's something in the last week. And the implication.
That's amazing that a producer that supplies 4% of the world market can, if that comes out, how much that can affect. That wouldn't seem that would be a large effect, but I don't.
Well, the way I would equate that, the oil supply, I think, if I remember the last figures I saw, which has been a while ago, then I think I'm going to inflate it a little bit. It was like 89 million barrels a day or something like that. But let's just put it, just for ease of calculations, the world consumes 100 million barrels a day of oil, and it's pretty consistent at 100 million barrels a day. And so, for example, like Iran or whatever, Iran produces, or there's percentage of that, like Iran, all the different producers around the world, they each account for 4, 5, 6% of the supply. But what happens is if you take one supply, like the Straits of Hormuz or whatever, that little bottleneck there for the oil supply going through that Straits, there's 20% of the world's supply goes through there. And so if one country shuts down 4% of their supply, that takes it, instead of you have a 100 million barrel a day consumption and you only have a 96 million barrel a day supply. Therefore, it puts the markets in disruption. So that 4 million barrels a day, even though it's only 4% of the market, just the same thing as it's copper. I'm assuming it's the same thing as the copper. That it's dispersed throughout the world and it's not all like 96% of it comes from one place.
Right, but I guess my thought on that, I could put a little blip on the radar, but if 96% of the producers, you would think would be able to pick up 4% of the market with pretty easy increase in their production, small increases in their production. But
that's not that easy to get people in there and equipment in there, and because you got to go invest now in a new piece of equipment maybe, which will take a little time, and you got to train somebody on it. They're probably trying to keep their production level and their costs at a consistent level, and then all of a sudden it will. But that's probably why they have those future markets too. The future markets aren't going to react quite as depending on how long it's going to take for that repair, that mud, because that mud thing might put them out of commission for 6 months, a year, or whatever. And that could take that production out for a while. And then
I guess the key factor there is that if those other 96% of the producers are only running at 80% capacity, they have the ability to ramp it up a little bit. There's just going to be that small delay. But anyway, those are hypothetical situations,
but you can't ramp up in a matter of a day either. It takes time to get your shifts going,
right.
And then you're not going to add a second shift.
Switch and start producing an extra $50 million barrels of oil.
Yeah, and you can't just go hire a whole shift. Like it takes this many workers worth of production, but you have capacity of two more shifts, but you're not going to add that kind of.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors probably that go into that. Let's see here. Iron ore rebounds as China leans on exports. We've been seeing that. I did see something in the news after we printed this morning that there was something else about iron ore. So, but it dipped. The steel output dipped to 77 million tons. Its weakest since December of 2024. Yet iron ore
That's just China, though. That's just China, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
China's steel output dipped, lowest since 2024, but yet their iron ore imports rose to 105 million tons, with September forecast pegged at 112. Analysts expect steel
we've been kind of watching that for the past month, and it's been that same imbalance, and it's kind of baffling to me.
Again, their cost is just cheaper to import there and then produce it yourself, or you'd use that low cost material. I guess it's
Well,
the same
sure,
thing.
but if they're buying 105 million tons and they're only outputting 77 million tons, why do they need that additional tonnage of iron ore? Just
I
to
don't
stockpile
know.
it at cheap prices? But
I don't know what the ratio is. Does it smelt down? The iron ore smelt down?
good point. Good point. I don't know.
I'm not familiar with the mill production on that. So if anybody's got any comments on that, run it out to us.
Yeah, this is why we like to have other people out there to join in on the conversation, folks. And help us answer those questions, because we're just a couple of guys
We know
trying
it
to
all.
figure out the steel business.
At least that's what Mom used to say to me. You think you know it all.
Wow. Yeah, back then we did, though.
Yeah. Until I turned 25.
And the older we get, we figure out the less we know.
Yeah. I've forgotten more than you ever know. Oh, sorry, I'm not Dad. Sorry.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. Just joking. Just having fun. So let's see here. Keeping going on that, the takeaways. Let's go to the service center markets here. I don't know. That's the same thing kind of now. The mills are doing that. I did see that Nucor at the mill level, Nucor hasn't raised their prices for 9 weeks now in a row? Or lower
Spot
the price?
prices. Yeah, they're spot prices, right. Mm-hmm.
So the U.S. derivative goods inclusions under tariffs still causes uncertainty. Of course, we keep.
That's a big one. That's a real big one, and I don't know how people who are, down the supply chain that are producing, those quote unquote derivative products. I don't know how that would seem to me that's pretty chaotic right now.
The next point is there's the implication of that is the compliance with that is how do you determine when you import a bicycle what percentage of that is aluminum, the spokes in the wheel, the nut that's on that wheel that's tying the spoke into the rim that's made out of aluminum, or is it titanium? One bike's titanium, one bike's aluminum. Some parts are aluminum, some parts are yikes.
That same thing. I just me personally, I just got a new regulator for my barbecue, and it came out of Canada. It got caught up in customs, but I don't know for what reason, but still, there's metal on there, there's plastic hose on there, there's brass fittings, and all these different kind of components that are on this regulator that I got for my barbecue. It's like, I suppose there's only 4 or 5 components of it, so it might be easy to give a percentage, but some more complex parts and stuff like that would be a real challenge.
And I know that's one of the things I guess it says here in the news. The European Union is concerned about that. Some of the products that they're supplying must include wind turbines, furniture. I mean, I didn't even think about that. Furniture, you got a leg, you got a little knob on there or whatever, those little slider things that are probably made from aluminum with a little plastic piece on there or whatever, but how much aluminum's in that little thing there, and so what percentage of your piece of furniture is costed out to have that little leg on there, Yeah,
the screws, the nuts and the bolts, and washers and whatever. I mean, yeah, that could be a real hassle, but I suppose it'll all settle down and work its way out somehow. I'm not involved in that.
Then again, I don't know. You start to then alternatives will start to come play, and I guess that's one of the reasons the U.S. is wanting to do this is to drive the manufacturing here. It's a lot easier just to say, here's your price for here's your couch price. It's $1,000. What's my import price?
We make it here.
$800.
Right, we make it here.
Yeah. Did I account for that correctly? I'm gonna get fined for buying that over there. Let's just buy this and sell the domestic piece of furniture.
I guess one of the things that and we've talked about this in the past is we're talking about the tariffs on the derivative products, but even tariffs on just the flat rolled steel and pipe tubing, whatever kind of steel that's being imported. The tariffs have been imposed and they're in place right now. But I have read as well that, the U.S. is still sending out letters to multiple countries to have conversations about talking about tariffs. So, they've been put in place now, but how long are they going to stay there? And I think that's what's creating a lot of uncertainty with a lot of people, as we've talked about in the past. It's like, how do you plan for that? And I know even service centers, it's like, well, I'm not going to buy real heavy right now, because if I buy real heavy, pay the tariffs on it all right now, and then they drop the tariffs by 25% tomorrow, that's a big hit, But I suppose they're not going to be the Lone Ranger. They're going to have other people in there. They just have to work through those kind of high cost inventories, which have happened in the past for significant other reasons as well.
Speaking of the tariffs on 25 and getting rid of those, last week we did talk about the Supreme Court was going to hear the case on whether the tariffs were legal or not. And if they were ruled not legal, then like that just 25% extra 232, those billions of dollars need to be rebated back to. And we talked a little bit about that last week. I don't know. Did you hear anything about that?
I think there was a date that was announced that the Supreme Court was going to look at that, but for some reason, off the top of my head, I thought it was like in November sometime.
But
I don't recall.
The end of the year, I don't know. When does their new year start? Is it now with the fiscal year of the same thing as the budget problem we're having now, or the getting that passed here today or not for the end?
I don't know. That's a whole nother subject, but no, I don't know. I do not know. And I don't know that the Supreme Court will worry about that. The Supreme Court's always,
they got
put
their
it in
docket.
their schedule, I think,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Their docket gets filled up. What cases
right.
But then again, there are sometimes it could be an emergency.
Right. Yeah. You would think that would be a pretty significant one, but I don't remember the date. We'll have to look at that.
Yeah, so
anybody else know the date out there? Let us know.
Take a peek here.
See if somebody pops it in the chat.
I don't know. It looks like the LinkedIn it keeps spinning on my side, so I don't know what's going on with that. The YouTube's good. Actually, I just refreshed the LinkedIn, and it seemed to work all right. Let me just refresh it again real quick. Yeah, see, it starts out at the... Anyway, let's move into the next one here. Actually, it just came back up. We're live. It looks live.
Okay.
No comments over there in the LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah. Nothing here. Nobody's answering that question for us. So the questions, we're kind of down here to the questions, suggested discussion questions, which we can kind of go over those real quick to wrap it up. Is how will the copper mine disruption reshape copper pricing, and what downstream impacts might we see? And we kind of talked about that a little bit. And again, who's going to make up for that? Are other people going to come in? Do they want a higher price for their premium product to get there on deliveries? The next 6 weeks, is it important? Because they're going to start missing their deliveries.
Know. Yeah.
Can China sustain its high iron ore imports and export push when domestic demand is under pressure? Real good question. I kind of talked about that a little bit as well, is how much iron ore you can import. One of the factors there that I'd still like to know, if anybody does know, is what is the percentage of iron ore? So a ton of iron ore makes how much of a ton of steel? Does it take 5 tons of iron ore to slow down?
Are they stockpiling it, or are they still shortfall? I mean, is there still a shortfall? I that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so will U.S. derivative tariffs expanding? How much the service centers? I guess it depends on what services. Metal service centers, they're bringing in. Seems to be a dollar for dollar. There's no derivatives.
So,
right.
Yeah, like you say, they're bringing in metal.
OEM's a different source. And again, the OEMs are bringing in parts that are combined that are fabricated with two different things. You know, it could be a piece of wood attached to a piece of metal. And, you know, what before that didn't include a tariff because it was HSC code or HTC code such and such.
Right, but I mean, a lot of factors come into play there. Is like, what's your lead time on some of those derivative products that you're buying? I mean, if it's a 3 to 5 month lead time, you have to be very cautious on it. But if it's only maybe a 4 to 6 week lead time, you can get it in and get it out into the market and, you know, recoup your costs quickly. But if you have to wait and the market changes during that waiting time, that's a game that a lot of people play anyway when they're buying import products. I mean, period. You know, that's a game that the purchasing agents have been able to play, or have had to play for a long, long time, especially with those long lead times.
Right. See, I got a chat come in here, and I was going to try to put it up on the screen, but I'm going to have to read it here. It's pretty long, so let me read it here real quick. Let's see here. As the global focus on sustainable energy solutions intensifies, the demand for high-performance components in solar tracking systems, that's another, such as torque tubes, has seen a significant upswing. That's a good point in this. I forgot all about the solar panels and stuff like that. They include definitely a lot of components, and there are definitely a lot of them made offshore. So this makes complete sense. These structural elements are critical to the performance and reliability of single-axis solar trackers, playing a vital role in optimizing energy, wind yield, and system durability. Current market dynamics in recent years, the market for torque tubes has expanded considerably, driven by the rapid growth of infrastructure. According to recent industry reports, the global solar tracker market is projected to grow at a CAGR exceeding 15% through 2030, with torque tubes being a fundamental component supporting this trend. This growth, further supported by government policies, green energy incentives, and ambitious net zero emission targets across various regions, particularly in North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. As a result, the demand for standard compliant, corrosion resistant, and cost effective torque tube solution. Great comment. Love that. Do you have any? It's just the putting back into the one of the things I use bicycles, but I think I'll probably start using solar panels because I can see how there's so many different components in when you import.
Yeah, it's something we don't think about. Thank you very much.
Definitely, big time. The benefit from green steel transition policy. Green steel. I don't know. I see some of the big automakers pulling back from EVs. You know, and it's like, I mean, again, it was a big thing. You know, the green energy, sustainable energy. I don't know how much push there is. And again, I know some of the steel mills are pushing for that, and I applaud, and I'd love to see, 100% sustainable green energy stuff, as long as it doesn't, become uncompetitive.
Double the price, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be the leader. I mean, like the U.S. for many years, the EPA put all those standards, and all the things, and everybody else around the world didn't care, and didn't have that cost of scrubbers and things like that on their output, their steel mill output. And their costs were a lot lower, so that made import steel less expensive. We can't just do that and make it more expensive. And because what happened was people would still buy the cheaper steel made without the environmental protections that were afforded. So it's the same thing with labor, even labor, a high cost labor thing. You put in, a country that has really high retirement and health benefits and retirement things. You work 20 years, you can retire at 40 years old, and we'll pay you a full 100% salary for the rest of your life. Doesn't work real well long term. It
doesn't.
Just doesn't seem to work real well. Other things seem to happen. So I don't know, the people who are low cost.
Well, especially when you're competing with other countries that are providing, the majority of lifestyle to their employees and only paying them, a very low wage, $200 a week or whatever it might be. They give them room and board and all that kind of stuff, but they only pay them $200 a week. for their labor. You know,
Right.
So
I guess low labor costs.
It's not an evil playing field. It's not an even playing field, but
I thought you said it wasn't an evil playing field for a second there. But.
even no.
Yeah, it's not.
Sometimes it feels like it's an evil playing field, but sometimes
I feel like it. Sometimes I don't. Mm-hmm. Almond joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see here. As current steel mills and suppliers investing in our current steel mill make the investment in it, you have you can't have a 5-year payout and have it invested in 2030. You're going to have to. It's a long-term investment, and I guess it just depends on what the capital expenditures are. You know, the financing part of that. There's a lot of factors.
There's a whole lot of variables that go into that.
Your cost of capital. What is your cost of capital and all this stuff for the next 5 years? You know, and probably they're all a little bit different too. They all run their businesses a little bit differently. So that's a question that each country / mill will have to answer as they go along here. Influence competitive positioning in steel globally. I'd say that's one of the things that's always focused on that. Currency, how they affect their currency, how they affect their environmental protections, their tariffs, their import duties and protection, you know, the protections that they do that. Probably influence it quite a bit. Governments seem to get involved in the steel business. At least we've seen that over the course of the last 45 years we've been doing this.
Yes. Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of always something going on in the background. It's never a complete free market across the board, across the world. It's never been that. It's just never been that.
Well, yeah, not all countries do things the same. I mean, just the same as what we were talking about, the labor market. I mean, you know, not all all countries are run the same way. And some may be better than others, or some, but to run their industries and their countries, if it's productive and suitable for the rest of the world, then I suppose if they're the cheapest one, then good for them, I guess.
Well, all we can say. Good deal.
Yeah.
All right, with that, I think we kind of wrap it up. I'm looking, no questions coming in on the, no more comments or questions coming in on any of the platforms. So we're kind of ready to wrap it up. Thank you for joining us here today. We'll do this again, I think.
Thank you.
10 o'clock next Tuesday, if I remember, Chris. Wednesday.
Tuesday, I believe. 7.
Tuesday, 10. Channel as well next week. The Steel Guys is the YouTube channel name, and Jim Glenn III the third. Jim Glenn the third is my profile of me, and then that usually does go out. I think we actually posted yesterday. I posted today's and next week's event pretty close together yesterday, so I'll probably put another post together here before the end of the week, you know, kind of advertising on next week's event. You want to get a hold of Scott?
Hopefully you can join us, and look forward to seeing everybody there next week.
Yeah, look at Jim Glenn, JIMGLENN at steelrep.com, or Scott Glenn at steelrep.com. That's 2 N's on the Glenn, and steelrep.com is the domain name. And feel free to get in touch with either one of us. We'd love to. We also have the steelguys.steelrep.com, our community that's built for busy professionals that are involved in the supply chain of metal. Reach out to that one, take a peek at that. We're going to be adding a couple spaces here and doing a little more integration, and it's set up for networking to get to know other people in the steel business and communicate. And this is kind of the outside the network. We do this, and we do this. We're setting up to do this inside the network on a regular basis as well. So a little more intimate, where we can do it on Zoom meetings rather than Zoom webinars, where we can all get to know each other.
Right. Yep.
With that, thank you very much. We'll see you next week. And have a good day.
All right. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. See you.
Bye.